Good day, everybody. My name is Dennis Collier, and my hometown team, the Blue Jays from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, just lost one of the greatest World Series ever played in the most heartbreaking fashion possible. You know, there's an old adage in sports that teams don't win or lose games because of one single play. In fact, one of the athletes that I just most recently interviewed, Brian Chu, Canadian Football League Hall of Famer, he really made it a point to emphasize this in the conversation that he and I had. And Brian should know he is a multiple times a winner and a loser of Grey Cup games. Occasionally, these games coming down to the final play of the game. Just like happened here in the 2025 World Series, decided in extra innings of game number 7. But Brian, I think, would emphasize that there is an awful lot of game that is played before these final moments, and it all matters. And that is a true story. Full stop. One play never decides the final outcome of a game. But from the point of view of sheer optics or sport psychology, it is difficult for the human mind to comprehend this truth when we witness things like we just witnessed in Game 7 of the World Series. When we can take everything that's just happened in the game up to this point, we're fine to leave everything the same way that it has been so far, but change this one play because the game is now literally over and the outcome is the precise opposite. The winner becomes the loser and the loser becomes the winner. And in this case, not just a winner, but the World Series champion. And my friends, baseball fans, sports fans, the single play that I'm talking about is this one. Now, I'm showing you this picture. I don't know what the rules are on Major League Baseball images. I'm very cautious about all this stuff. Anyway, clearly no one believes that I own this image. I got it. It's from Fox Sports. But the reason why I'm showing this image, it is necessary to illustrate how close is the difference between sporting glory and losing. The play that you are looking at is from the bottom of the 9th of the World Series. The score is tied. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa was on third base, 90 feet away from the run that would be the World Series winning run. And as you can see from this image, what is that, ladies and gentlemen? Centimeters away from his foot touching home plate, thereby scoring the run and winning the Blue Jays the World Series. But unfortunately, catcher Will Smith has the ball. His foot is also on the plate. Therefore, the base runner is out, and the game continues. The Blue Jays ultimately lose. But if Kiner-Falefa beats this ball to the plate by the slimmest of margins, then the Blue Jays are, in fact, World Series champions. Now, I want to make myself perfectly crystal clear on this point. I am not blaming the outcome on a mistake by this individual player, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. In fact, what I'm going to explain here is what seems to be a very novel sport science-based solution as to how the Blue Jays could have won the World Series. Because it seems to me 95% of the commentary that I've read about this play online so far is just missing the point, man. And I think the reason why they are missing the point is because they are analyzing this play from too much of a baseball lens and not a sports science lens. And this baseball lens they are using for analysis, it has the magnification turned up way too high. You are getting too caught up in the nuance of baseball-specific strategy when what would give you a better solution is to take a couple steps backwards and from a broader, more global sport science perspective, analyze what goes wrong for the Blue Jays on this play. The common critique, the overwhelmingly most common critique actually, has to do with the distance of the lead that Kiner Falefa took off of third base. And now we are into high-level baseball-specific strategies. How far a lead should a runner take? How short of a lead should a runner take? There is very complicated nuance to all this based on different factors that present themselves at different times in different baseball games. I would never present myself as being a baseball expert, but I tell you what, for a really good 4-minute summary of this particular issue, the distance of the lead Kiner Falefa, takes off of third base, I'd suggest check out this quick video I saw on YouTube this morning by Baseball Authority. And you know what? There probably is some legitimacy to this. I don't want to argue with the baseball experts. Probably IKF should have had a farther lead off of third base, thereby reducing, obviously, the distance that he has to travel to home plate to score the World Series winning run. By the way, let's show it one more time again as a visual reminder. The difference in making it or not making it is this. But for the sake of argument, I will point out one thing. Please don't forget, it was literally one game ago when the Blue Jays lost Game 6 for a base running play where the runner did the exact strategy you're now suggesting, right? In Game 6, Addison Barger gets picked off of second base. How come? For having too aggressive a lead off of second base. So which one is it? Is it be aggressive or is it not be aggressive? And I know this is really, folks, speaks to the difficulty and the complexity of sports. The margin of error is razor thin. In one situation, you're supposed to do this, and the other, you're supposed to do the opposite. And the best players seem to navigate that razor's edge, and they make these seemingly impossible decisions in the right way more times than not. Anyway, folks, sports are difficult. So anyway, base running tactical strategies aside, what is my critique of this play that could have won the Toronto Blue Jays the World Series? Let me show you the picture one more time. And someone out there, please explain to me why, oh why on earth is the runner sliding into home plate on this play? Let's do a little thought exercise. If you were to stop someone on the street who is not a baseball fan, only knows superficially about the sport of baseball, and ask them to name a couple things that athletes in the sport do, what would the person say? They'd say, they throw a ball, yes. They bat a ball. They run around bases and slide into bases. This is part of the reason why I don't blame IKF, because it's such an ingrained part of baseball culture that you slide on the close play, even though in this case, sliding cost the Blue Jays the World Series. It may be useful at this point actually to do a quick analysis of the question why players slide to bases in baseball. And there is only two reasons, actually. Actually, the second one being more important of the two, but there is two reasons. And I'll explain the first one first. The first reason why a baseball player would slide into a base is to avoid being tagged out when there's not a force play at that base. I can give you an analogy to explain this. At the risk of being too graphic, because the analogy is using the military. Let's say you're in a gunfight, and bullets are flying all around through the air. What is the common tactic to avoid being tagged by one of these bullets? You hit the ground, right? You make yourself flat on the ground. Why do you do this? Because now you've reduced the target, whether it be being tagged by a bullet or being tagged by a baseball. If you're vertical, if you're upright, the target for your opponent is now 6 feet. Whereas if you get on the ground, you've reduced the target to whatever is the width of a human body. So what you're doing is you are forcing your opponent to be very accurate. You're making it difficult on your opponent. If it's not a force play and you slide into the base, that throw has now got to be in a much smaller target zone for the fielder catching the ball to apply a tag on the runner. So that is the first very good reason why baseball players use the tactic of sliding into a base. But the second reason is actually even more important of the two, and that is because the sport of baseball presents a very interesting physiological situation where the athlete has to get as fast as possible from base to base. So you got to cover 90 feet as fast as you possibly can. But when you reach your destination, you got to come to a dead stop when it's not a forced play. And so baseball players, geniuses that they are, well over 100 years ago, came to realize what is the best thing to do when the sport presents this very odd situation. The best thing to do is run as fast as I can and then propel my body into the ground, avail of the coefficient of friction of the dirt, and stop myself at the base so I don't overrun the base. That is the main reason why players slide, to decelerate as quickly as possible, but still maintain contact with the base when the situation requires that you maintain contact with the base. And so in the case of poor Isaiah Kiner-Falefa and the Toronto Blue Jays, they really, really would have benefited in this situation from a different set of eyes that sees the situation not myopically from a baseball perspective, but from a sport science perspective. In fact, maybe the best piece of advice that IKF could have gotten in that situation was if someone had gotten his ear and had said, Isaiah, at this moment, you are no longer a baseball player. You are a sprinter. My old sport, sprinting. The thing that I believe every athlete should incorporate into their training, maybe even, dare I say, every person should incorporate into their exercise program. That is, how fast can I move my body from point A to point B? If you look at athletes like Brendan Rodney at the Olympics, when they cross the finish line, are they sliding across the finish line? Of course not. They are sprinting all the way through the line because that's the fastest way to get from point A to point B. And that is what was needed in this case for the Toronto Blue Jays. Get as fast as you can. Close those 90 feet. The World Series winning run 90 feet away from third base to home. Get there as fast as you can. Put your foot on the plate. Beat the throw by... That's all they needed. And the Toronto Blue Jays could be World Series champions. And man, oh man, if they were, would it not be a good day for everybody?